So we had a regional track meet this past weekend, and prior to this track meet, the week before, we have what's called Beast Week, where the coaches basically, they ran those kids to death all last week, right? I mean, every single day they had them running, every single day jumping, all the events that you have to participate in for the regional track meet. You had to do, I don't know how many reps. And we were out there sometimes to almost 9 o'clock, from 6 to 9 o'clock practicing. Those kids getting all those reps in, right? And it's for a reason. And one of the things you talked about, I look at it like this, perfection versus PR. And PR, in the track sense is, stands for personal record, right? And one of the things I like about the coaches, what they do is they always stress getting a PR, right? Getting a PR, because that makes you better. You may not, win the race, but if you got better, that's the goal. The goal should be to constantly, every single track meet, to get better, to get faster, to jump higher, to jump longer, to throw the discus a little bit further, not necessarily my goal is to get a gold medal today. If you do that, great. Nobody's going to complain that you medal, but the goal should always be to PR. And so my son did 3 events in this past track meet. And during Beast Week, oh man, it was rough. It was rough. He had to run so many times, and it was just so rough. And we prepared him for it, ahead of time. We were like, hey, Beast Week is going to be tough. You remember how it was the track season before, where, it was really tough, but it's so that you get down to regionals and you do the best that you can, right? Yeah. And so my son, during Beast Week, he did everything that he could or whatever. He did his best during practice. But for whatever reason, when he had to do the long jump this past weekend on Friday, it just wasn't there. He didn't put it all together. And so he and I, we had a long discussion on to the hotel, about, hey, what are you here for? We coming down here to support you. What do you want to do? He PR, mind you, he PR'd for the in his long jump distance, but he was upset because he didn't medal as well, right? And he just didn't feel like he did as good as he could, even though he PR'd. He felt like he left something in the tank. So we talked to him, and we're like, hey, look, you got to get focused. You prepared. Don't get down there and get overwhelmed. So I was proud to see him on that next morning when he had to do the high jump, and you saw the confidence, all those things you're talking about, confidence. You saw the focus. You saw, him put it all together, and he qualified basically to go to Junior Olympics in the high jump, and he had a PR. Okay. And, it was one of those things where, you can't really necessarily, it's perfection, him getting the best that he could have, or is perfection getting the gold medal. If you're saying perfection is getting the gold medal, he didn't do it, but he did PR, like I said, and he did the best. He gave the best of himself, and therefore, it gave him the opportunity to go to Junior Olympics. So, like I said, it's always this, this kind of thing between PR and being the best version of yourself and perfection. Because honestly, the way I look at it, perfection, nobody is perfect. And only one person is perfect, and we know who that person is, Jesus. But, that's not, we're not going to be necessarily perfect, right? But we can strive to be. And so that was one of the things I was definitely proud of him for, as far as, being prepared. I feel, like I said, when I think about, practice makes perfect, I think about spending the time in, putting the effort in, putting the work in, spending those hours in the gym, perfecting your craft, being prepared. That's what I think about. And, we talked about the entertainment side of things or whatever, but, if you're a business person, if you're a writer, if you're some type of content creator, you still need to prepare. You still need to practice. We just talked about it. I could think of, before we started this podcast, we practiced for a lot. We did a lot of practice sessions, and even when I go back and listen to or watch some previous episodes, I still look back and say, man, I could have said this a little bit better. I could have done this better. But it's all about getting those reps in, being more conscious of what you're doing and having that practice. So that I definitely look at that. I look at that as something that it's constant. Practice makes perfect. Because you're not perfect and we won't be perfect, you're gonna always have to practice, is the way I look at it. Because you're always trying to get better. You should have that mindset of getting better. How do I get better? How do I get better?
Yeah.